All right, and we're going to do support quiz 2. Because this uses some of them interest formulas, and some of them are sort of tricky. So if you're using a calculator, I definitely want to sort of show you how to do these on that calculator. So for number 1, they want me to calculate the amount of interest all right, y'all, let me let one in real quick. Okay, so I'm going to calculate the amount of interest you'll have at the end of the indicated period. All right, so this is like number 1 on your quiz, okay? So they're giving me, you invest $700 in an account that pays simple interest of 4% for 7 years. So y'all, the 2 types of interest we looked at was simple interest and compound interest. Simple interest is so much a year, and it's the same amount every year. You don't compound the interest onto the original principal. It's a set amount, and it pays that same amount every year. So what you want to do on this one, since it's simple interest, we want to figure out what 4% of 700 is. Now here's the thing. 4% has to be turned into a decimal for me to use it in my formulas, okay? So to turn 4% into a decimal, if there's no decimal, we treat it like it's at the end of the 4. And to turn it into a decimal form, you got to move it left twice. So you move it left once, and then we're going to have to add a 0 and move it left again. So to move it left twice, I had to add a 0 so that I get a 0.04. So this is now in decimal form, okay? So I'm going to take $700. I'm going to multiply by 0.04. And that'll give me how much interest I get per year. So y'all, if we go to our calculator, so let me share that. So I'm doing 700 times 0.04, or you could use the parentheses to multiply, but that is $28 a year. Okay, so we go back to what they're asking. They want me to calculate the amount of interest that I'll have at the end of these 7 years. Not how much money I got in the bank, but how much interest I got. So since I'm getting $28 a year interest, I'm going to multiply that by 7, because that's how many years we're going to get that $28. And y'all, let's see, we're doing what? 28 times 7. So let's go. 28 times 7 looks like $196. All right, they'll have an A, B, C, D answer, but we're gonna pick the one that says 196. Now, if I wanted to know how much money I have in that account, I would take all the interest I made and add it to the 700 I started with, and that would give me the total amount in the account. But remember, all they want to know was the interest, the amount of interest we'll have, okay? All right, so y'all number 2 here. This one says use the compound interest formula to determine the accumulated balance after the stated period. And then it says, assume the interest is compounded annually. All right, y'all, so they're telling us 450 is invested at an APR of 3.5% for 12 years. Well, y'all, here's the thing about it. If it's compounded annually, that pretty much means that you got simple interest going on, okay? Because that's once a year annually. Okay, so that's pretty much your simple interest formula. Um, but they're wanting me to use the compound interest formula. So let's use that one. That was A equals P. Remember, P is my principal. And then it's 1 plus my APR divided by N raised to the N times T, or the N times Y, I think we use in there, right? So instead of T for years, we use Y, so my bad. So y'all, that is the NY there, okay? So P is the principal. So that's your starting amount, which will be 450. APR is your APR is your annual percentage rate. We're going to turn that into a decimal by moving that left twice. So that'll give us a 0.035 for our APR. N is the number of compounds per year. Well, if it's compounded annually, that'll be a 1. And then Y is the number of years. So let's fill out what we got. P was $450. And then it's 1 plus our annual percentage rate. Remember, we said 3.5%. We got to move this left twice so that it becomes a 0.035. So 0.035. N is the number of compounds per year. Annually means 1 time a year, y'all. And then that'll be 1 times the number of years, which is 12. So y'all, now we got our formula. We can go right to that calculator and plug this in. So here we go. So I got 450 parentheses 1 plus 0.035 divided by 1, close parentheses, and then the exponent, use the arrow up. That was 1 times 12. So y'all, we got our formula in there. So when we hit enter, we got to round off to the nearest cents, which will be 2 decimal places. So that'll be 679.98. I keep that at 8 because it had a 0 after it, okay? So y'all, that is using our compound interest formula. So MATLAB wants that right there, okay? Hey, also want to let y'all catch that up, and then we'll move on to number 3 for this. Do y'all have questions on those yet? All righty, I'm gonna flip it over and we'll knock out number 3. So number 3 says the same thing. Use compound interest formula. And then it says for compounding more than once a year to determine the accumulated balance after the stated period. All right, so we're given $4,000 deposit, APR of 6%, monthly compounding, and then for 3 years. So we're investing this money for 3 years at an APR of 6% with monthly compounding. So we're going to use that compound interest formula again, where A equals P times 1 plus our APR divided by our number of compounds raised to the number of compounds times the year. All right, so what's my P? Well, my P they gave us, y'all, that's $4,000. Then we got 1 plus. All right, y'all, so what am I putting in for the APR on top of this fraction? So y'all chat me out and tell me, what am I putting for my APR? Oh, you're so close, but move that decimal left one more time. Because you got to move it twice. So that actually, Morgan, that looks good, a 0.06. All right, here's another question. How many compounds a year will you have if you're getting monthly compounding? How many times a year would monthly be? All right, Morgan, you're on the roll because that means 12 times, right? There's 12 months in a year, y'all. All right, so that n goes here again, so that'll be 12 times our years. And y'all, they gave us what? 3 was our years. So we basically go plug this into our calculator now. So let me clear everything off. So I got 4,000. Now realize, since this is an investments, you should end up with more money than you're starting with on these, okay? All right, y'all, 1 plus 0.06 divided by that 12. Close parentheses and use the arrow up. for our exponent, which was 12 times 3. All right, y'all, so I'm going to hit enter. I'm expecting something over 4,000, right? So when we hit enter, we get $4,786. And let's see, I got 7, 2. That 2 has a 2 behind it. So we'll leave the second 2 as a 2 and get 72 cents. Okay, y'all, so that's the trick on that. Plug that in, hit enter, round me off 2 decimal places since you're dealing with money, okay? So y'all, number 4 is a variation of this formula. Because here's the thing on number 4. Number 4 says you want to have a $100,000 college fund in 20 years. Okay, I want to have a $100,000 college fund in 20 years for my future kid that I'm about to have. Okay, I'm about to have a kid and I want to make sure they're able to go to college. So I want to have $100,000 at the end of these 20 years. How much will you have to deposit in an account with an APR of 5% and daily compounding? Okay, so I'm looking for the amount that I can have to be $100,000. I know the bank is going to give me 5% APR with daily compounding, and we're doing this for 20 years. So y'all, we had another formula to find those kind of values. Because now we're looking for the principal or the starting amount. So the principal is equal to the A divided by all this stuff in the parentheses. So it'll be the 1 plus your APR divided by N, all raised to the N times Y. So basically, to solve for A, if you know A and you know all this, then to solve for P, you basically divide both sides by all this. That's how they're getting this formula, okay? So, we know A, we know what we want in that account. That we want that to be $100,000. Then we got our parentheses, 1 plus, y'all, I got 5%. What are y'all putting in for my APR if your APR is 5%? So 0.05. Now, what about this? Daily compounding. It's compounded every single day. How many days are in a year? All right, that's 365. And then my exponent would be 365 times the number of years. And we said that would be 20 years. So y'all, here's the trick on this one. I always use the fraction feature on my calculator. So let me show you how I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to my calculator. So let me clear this off. So to get fractions on the calculator, you hit the green alpha button and y equals. And option number 1, ND, you hit enter on that. That makes it look like the fraction. So on top, you put in your 100,000. Then you arrow down. And here's where I got my parentheses. 1 plus 0.05 divided by 365. Close those parentheses. Hit the arrow up for the exponent and put in your 365 times 20. Okay, y'all? Now, I will show you the other way if you don't have that fraction option. But on this one, when I hit enter, I get $36,790. And what's that? 46 cents, rounding off 2 decimal places. Now, if you don't have that fraction off option, here's how you got to do this one. You got to do 100,000 divided by parentheses 1 plus 0.05 divided by 365, close parentheses. Now, y'all, at this moment, let's see, I think the exponent should hit here, and that'd be what? 365 times 20. All right, so let's hit enter, and we get the same thing. So notice though, you definitely got to put those parentheses around the bottoms with that 1 plus 0.05 divided by 365. No matter which way you do it, you got to put them parentheses there, because that exponent that we're multiplying affects everything inside those parentheses, okay? All right, y'all, so that tells me if I went to the bank tomorrow and put in $36,790.46, and they gave me 5% interest, daily compounding, I know in 20 years, I'll have $100,000, okay? So that's how, if you want to save, say you want a brand new car in 5 years, and you want to get you a Corvette or something, and that Corvette's going to cost you $80,000. Well, if you can figure out your interest rate, what kind of compounding you're getting, and your time would be, say, 5 years, you can figure out how much you would have to put down in that bank so that you would have that $80,000, okay? Say you want a down payment for a new house, and you want to get a new house in 10 years or so. Same thing, you can figure out how much you need, and then how much you got to put into the bank to get to that amount, okay? So y'all, those formulas, that's how you solve for the different things. Do you want the principal you're solving for, or are you solving for that amount, okay? All right, y'all, this one says calculate the amount of money you'll have at the end of the indicated time period. Now, this one don't want the interest. This wants the whole amount of money I'm going to have, okay? So you invest $2,000 in an account that pays simple interest of 4% for 10 years. So remember, this one is simple interest. So if I can figure out how much interest I'm making for 1 year, I can multiply that interest times 10 because of 10 years and then add it back to my original amount. And that'll give me how much is in that bank after those 10 years. So remember, simple interest, I can figure out what 4% of 2,000 is. So I'm starting with $2,000. So 4%, remember, you'll move that decimal left twice. So that'll give us a 0.04. And y'all, I want y'all to notice the difference between simple interest and the compounded interest, okay? Compounded interest would figure out what 4% for the first year is, add it back to it, and then the next year you'd get 4% of that total. Compounding adds the interest in and then figures out your interest for the next year. Simple interest is just a straight up 4%, and it's always 4% no matter how many years you do it, okay? All right, y'all, so one of y'all punch in what is 4% of 2,000 for me? So what are you getting? $80? Okay. So that's $80 per year. We got 10 years. So we're going to do 80 times the 10 years. And that would be what, 800? So it's 800 for 10 years. But notice they want the amount of money you'll have at the end of that time. So y'all, we started with 200, we started with 2,000. So we started with 2,000. We're adding 800 interest. So that was our interest for 10 years. And y'all, when we add them together, we get what's that, 2,800? So y'all, simple interest. Figure out the interest and then multiply by the number of years, add it back to your amount. So if you want to make money, you really want compounded interest, okay? Because look, if this was 80 per year and we was doing compounded interest instead of simple, after 1 year you would have 2,080. Then you would take 4% of that, 2,080, not just the 2,000, okay? So you're compounding it as you go through. All right, y'all, let's see. This one says, use the appropriate compound interest formula to compute the balance in the account after the stated period of time. All right, y'all, $3,000 is invested for 13 years with an APR of 2.23% and monthly compounding. All righty. So we know this formula, that's the one with the A equals P times 1 plus APR divided by n, all raised to the n times y. So y'all, I'm going to have y'all help me fill it in. What are we putting in for P? So, all right, two of y'all got me good, 3,000. All righty. Then it's 1 plus, what are y'all putting in for APR? All right, y'all, let me see what y'all got. 0.0223, that looks good. So they just moved that decimal left twice and added me a 0. What about N? What's the number of compounds per year? All right, so I'm gonna go with 12 on that. There's remember 12 months in a year. So I don't know if Griffin hit the 3 by accident but remember 12 months in a year. So that'll go right here, 12 times. So what are y'all putting in for Y? So now Griffin got me with that 13. Good job. All right, so if we punch this in correctly, we hope we got more money than we started with, right? So let's go to that calculator. I'm gonna clear everything off. All right, y'all, so we had our $3,000, parentheses, 1 plus 0.0223 divided by 12. And then my exponent was 12 times 13. All righty, so I'm not going to hit enter because I want to see what y'all get on that to make sure y'all are pushing this in good, okay? So one of y'all push that in your calculator and tell me what we would write and round me off to the nearest cents. So you're going to have 2 decimal places. Ooh, that's like 13 years. So, Morgan, that was pretty quick. Let's see what you got. $4,007.80. So y'all, let's see if Morgan's right when we hit enter. Y'all look at that, 4,007.80. We're going to keep that at 0 because it's got a 3 behind it. So good job. 4,007.80. So you didn't invest a whole lot of money for those 13 years, and you got a really low APR. So that's why after 13 years, you made what, about $1,007 or so. But like I said, if you get better APRs, that money goes up more, okay? So, y'all, if you're ever thinking about doing investments, that's how they sort of play with investments. Now, one we don't mess with right now, but there's another type of interest called continuous compounding, and it uses a different formula, and we don't really mess with that here. So all y'all got to know is this type of stuff right here. Simple interest, I figure out the interest, and it's the same every year for ever how many years. Compound interest is affected by the number of compounds per year, okay? And that gives you more money in the long run than it does with the simple interest. So y'all, that was my main thing. I just wanted to go through that support quiz 2 for you that's due this week. to sort of show you how to work these problems. And then that's how you'll work the problems through that section, okay? So there was a support assignment that showed you how to do the decimals from the percents and all that fun stuff, okay? So y'all, let me make sure, let me stop this share a second. All right, so I just wanted to make sure I had everybody here. All right, y'all, so do y'all have any questions for me? All right, now I will say, y'all, this was one of our busier weeks, sort of, for this year, because we had to do for A, B, and I think D it was. But it's basically dealing with all this financial stuff, okay? Also, I won't see y'all again till next Monday. So don't forget to play with that budget project and at least start filling in your data for it, okay? Off of that um sheet that I sent in the I think I put it under what, week 4 in Blackboard, okay? So week 4 will have all the budget stuff. All right, y'all, any questions? Alrighty, y'all, so work through these problems. Now remember, if any of these problems on the homework are holding you up, bring me a copy of the homework to our next class on Monday, and I'll actually show you how to work those, okay? Alrighty, everybody, I don't see nothing else, so I'm gonna stop our recording.